Hi, I'm Tim Travis from Xbox Reviews and Verdicts, and might I say thank you to those who have been keeping up with me and watching my videos. So I've considered making a video like this for a while. Halo is one of the most revered first-person shooter series out there, and quite frankly one of the greatest gaming franchises ever made. There really isn't much that hasn't been said about Halo. It revolutionized shooters with gameplay advancements like rebounding health and shields, allowing only 2 weapons to be equipped at a time, and allowed players to quickly use melee or grenades. Halo made the Xbox a household name, and helped popularize online multiplayer for consoles. Now, I love a lot of the games I've reviewed so far, but franchises I have talked about or will be talking about, I've only started playing recently, like Borderlands, Resident Evil, and Assassin's Creed. Halo is special to me, and I've been playing it for a very long time, so with that in mind, instead of, say, making a documentary on the series with information many gamers already know, I decided to give you my perspective on the series. So with the release of Halo 4 this year, Microsoft's big heavy hitter, I thought these videos would be interesting and show you how much this series means to me, and throughout this retrospective, I'll talk about my history as an Xbox gamer, along with other series, but in the context of how Halo in some ways tied it all together. So with that said, I'm going to talk about another franchise and how it led me into Halo. When I was younger, along with most any other American child, I enjoyed Star Wars. I was obsessed with it even, and when I was in 5th grade, I got Star Wars Battlefront for the Xbox for Christmas in 2004. It was my first dual-stick shooter, and it took me some time to get used to, but it then became one of my favorite games of the time, playing some of my favorite battles from the movies over and over. And I did the same with the sequel, Battlefront 2. These were great games, alone or with friends. But while those games were great shooters, but as a gamer and you get older, you want to play games that are more mature, and there was one Star Wars game that just fit the bill perfectly. I would later play Star Wars Republic Commando in 6th grade after playing a demo for it that came with a DVD for the Star Wars Clone Wars animated shorts. That was probably my favorite game at the time, and I played the campaign so much. It was another one of my first FPS titles, and it was violent, dark, gritty, bloody, and most importantly, a damn good, badass time. And I only wanted something as good or better than it. During 6th grade, my friends were talking about another shooter, something called Halo. I wanted to play it, and I looked the game up around the time my family finally got high-speed internet. The gameplay looked so cool, and hell, the box art for Halo 2 simply grabbed my attention. Sure, I was playing other mature games like Ghost Recon 2 and the first 2 Splinter Cell games, and I was really inspired by Republic Commando, but I didn't think my parents would allow me to play an M-rated title. But I finally did get Halo 2 at the beginning of summer in 2006. When I played Halo 2 for the first time, I was blown away. I still remember the first shots I fired on the Cairo orbital defense platform over a besieged Earth. The gameplay, the violence, the badassness, the swearing,
whoop any inhuman son of a bitch,
and dual wielding, something I still think is too cool, it was all amazing. I was enthralled by the game, and outside of the sometimes confusing levels for me, I greatly enjoyed the game and the universe it created. About a week after I got Halo 2, I also got the original Combat Evolved, which I also loved. Even though it didn't have dual wielding, but it did have a campaign where you play as Master Chief exclusively, and of course the assault rifle, which does make up for the lack of using 2 SMGs at the same time. And really, the gameplay systems were the best of any shooter I played at the time. and it took a long time to find something that even came close to how well it played. The combat was just so interesting. All the weapons are so much fun, especially human weapons like the battle rifle, SMG, and rocket launcher, though Covenant weapons like the Needler were also very interesting. They just had such a feel to them and had awesome sound effects. The enemies were just too much fun to fight. The grunts are the perfect cannon fodder and are still humorous after all this time. The elites were tough and nimble and kept you on your toes. The way insect-like drones swarm you is exhilarating, and taking down hunters is so satisfying. Oh, and the Flood? So creepy, and impressively, like their name implies, flood your radar and screen with hostiles. Some of the best moments of both games were when you had multiple factions like the Covenant, Flood, and Robotic Sentinels all simultaneously fighting and killing each other, and you were just stuck in the middle of the madness. I haven't even mentioned piloting vehicles like Warthogs, tanks, and Banshees, and are just too much fun and a good break from the infantry combat. The presentation for both games was no slouch either. I was impressed with the graphics in 2006, since I hadn't gotten into the next generation of consoles yet. And who doesn't like the Halo score? I thought at the time, and still do think, Marty O'Donnell is gaming's John Williams. The soundtrack for Halo is incredibly memorable, and I will never forget the Halo 2 theme that features Steve Vai. The first two Halo games on the original Xbox were, and still are, awesome, though I did have some complaints about Halo 2. First, since I was so drawn to Master Chief's character, I was disappointed that half of the campaign you had to play as another character, the Arbiter, whose story I eventually found very interesting, but let's face it, the Chief is the star of the show. There were also some technical hiccups in the cutscenes, which was too bad, but really with Halo 2, I wanted to stay on Earth and take the fight to the Covenant there. I would really talk about the cliffhanger ending at the end of Halo 2, but since I had just gotten into the series, it wasn't as big of an issue for me since I hadn't already invested hours and hours with the original game. The issue for me was that in the last level, you should really be playing as the iconic Chief and not the Arbiter. But let's face it, as much as most fans hate the ending of Halo 2, when Master Chief announced his intentions for coming back to Earth, it gave us all chills in a good way.
This is Spartan 117. Can anyone hear me? Over.
Isolate that signal. Master Chief, you mind telling me what you're doing on that ship?
Sir, finishing this fight.
But I still had Combat Evolved, where you do play as the Chief the whole way through, and when I finally got to the end of the final level of the game, the Maw, that Warthog scene was just so impressive, with everything blowing up around you and having to tackle a crazy obstacle course. That didn't mean I didn't love Halo 2 to death. I enjoyed both equally. It still might be the grittiest Halo to date, and the level, Delta Halo, is amazing.
Calls to extend the reach.
Now Halo isn't Halo without multiplayer, and though for all of my original Xbox days, I was content without Xbox Live, but I absolutely loved local multiplayer of Halo. I played both campaigns with friends through co-op and competitive multiplayer through split screen on Halo 2 a whole lot. Just blasting each other away was so much fun. Since we didn't have Xbox Live and always had a maximum of 4 players, it was always more fun to play on smaller maps like Midship than large maps like Coagulation. Two game types me and my friends found some of the most fun were Swords only games on Lockout and Rockets only matches on Foundation. Halo 2 was probably the most memorable local multiplayer game for me. There is nothing more fun than you and 3 buddies sitting on the same couch playing a heated 4-player split screen game of Halo, with everyone murdering each other and proceeding to yell at one another over how that last kill was complete bullshit. The Halo experience was all in all the best thing I ever played at the time. It had awesome weapons, intuitive action, memorable moments, great multiplayer and a very interesting lore that I would grow to enjoy more and more as I played it. At this time, the next generation of gaming was beginning, and another game in what was fast becoming one of my favorite series wasn't that far away. Stay tuned for part 2 of my Halo retrospective for my take on Halo 3.
I know you. Your past. Your future.
Thanks for watching this video. Please subscribe to the channel, follow me on Twitter, follow the blog, and check out the Facebook page. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy my future videos.